Good evening. It is Curtis Selby, your retired midnight blogger. What blogs at midnight, or in this case, at 10:18 p.m. Central Time. I am glad to see Matt Cheatwood is in the chat room. Thank you very much. This stream is actually going to be my review of the video that you sent me about the interview with, I believe his name is Bret Weinstein. I found several very excellent points in there, and in my own way, I'm going to try to make some of those points and relate how how I think that they're very relevant and very salient. Let me know. Well, anyway, I have had some technical issues. I may not be able to do much about it, but let me know if the sound quality is not great. There was a lot of interest there, yes, as well as some things I yeah. There are definitely things with Weinstein that I don't agree with. What I like about him though is one, he's obviously a very intelligent person. This is not some dummy with a 90 IQ. This is someone that, at least in many cases, I'm sure not in all, but in many cases, he comes across as really knowing what he's talking about. I saw a couple of other interviews about him. He's been doing more lately. I hadn't seen many of his interviews before, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. The AI was always recommending him to me, but for whatever reason, I never listened. This one I felt to be salient because he actually he sounds different in this one than he did in earlier videos. It seems to me like he's having some soul searching going on. Yes, yes, let me highlight that comment. He is a person that has thought deeply on the issues that he discussed. And yes, that's another thing that I love about him. Now, I tend to be an overthinker, and possibly so does he. Maybe that's why I like him. But he's not often just throwing something off the cuff. He has thought, I think, about most of these statements for hours, if not days. I can see that he's looked up a lot of things. He's read a book or two. I mean, I'm sure he's read more than that, but he's not just regurgitating all the stuff that the media says. He's doing his own thinking, whether we agree with it or not. He's actually doing his own thinking. And of course, as we all know, in these times, that makes him a dangerous person, as are we all, evidently, if we dare to do our own thinking. I've spent a little bit, although honestly, probably not enough time, trying to get the tabs to where I want them to be so that I can essentially relay what he said and then give some of my own analysis on that. Unfortunately, like I said, I didn't take enough time to prepare this, but essentially, to me, there are two main themes that he discusses that I agree, at least in part, with. One is that we as a people are being painfully naive when we're allowing our borders to just be so permeable, and yet we don't expect that people who are willing to run planes into the towers, people who are willing to basically declare that we are the enemy, we are the Satan, we need to come down. we're naive if we don't believe those people will try to find some way to take advantage of this. The second point that I felt most salient in his discussion is that speech needs, I tried to reword it in my own way. I'm not sure it's adequate, but speech needs to be essentially free, or there is no science to trust, and there is no freedom in our government. So, without further ado, let me play a minute or two and do a little bit of discussing, and hopefully the chat also has some interactions to make. Let me get this to where I want it. Maybe present, share screen, share screen. Where is it at? Okay. Sorry for all the silence. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. Is that it? That's not it. And that's not it. Why isn't the one that I want show? Oh, here it is. Yep, here we go. Okay.
Properties that have a paradoxical nature that is capable of dealing with the we are being naive, not at least publicly entertaining the possibility that our antagonists abroad would take advantage of our famous lack of security. And you're going to see why we have to talk about genocide. Somebody has to open these topics if we are to get past them and not have them haunt our future.
Why has it become a meme to say that America is collapsing like the Roman Empire? Growth is petered out. We borrowed from the future. We can't do that anymore. And now we're getting tribal.
Yes, but I don't believe that it is hopeless. If I'm honest, I believe we will probably screw it up and it will become inevitable.
Lovely.
Yeah. But there's a reason that I'm taking the risks that I am to talk about these things in public, which is I believe we still have the potential to rescue Western civilization, and probably, if I'm honest about it, to present a 2.0 version that is capable of dealing with the novelty that the 1.0 version is straining under. The key thing is human beings detect the failure of growth, because the failure of growth is not an economic fact. It's a fact of resource scarcity, and it has applied to all of our ancestors for 3.5 billion years. So it's not that, growth didn't get invented in a modern economic context. Economics formalized an understanding of something that is as primal as anything else. What must be true in order for us not to descend into this other phase, the phase where musical chairs, the music stops and there are way too few chairs in which.
Okay, and I'm going to stop it there to start my commentary a little bit. Thank you very much, Matt Cheatwood. I agree. Speech needs to be maximally free, 100%. And my friend S. Jones has entered. He is going to listen to some of my wild madcaps. He says civilization seems to go through waves of tribalism and universalism, usually when the tribalism has led us into something very costly. I know that my interest in spiral dynamics a few years ago had led me to a very similar conclusion. Essentially, it's slightly a different point, but bears repeating that as a society goes up this spiral of theoretical evolution, and I mean, I know there's real evolution, but I mean, spiral dynamics is a theory. That's all I'm really trying to say there. As theoretically a society moves up that spiral, it's constantly oscillating between individualism and some form of, maybe not tribalism, but essentially the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, a social thing versus an individualistic thing, oscillating back and forth throughout time. And Matt Cheatwood says it is problematic when a tiny portion of a population is experiencing growth while the vast majority are experiencing scarcity. And that is also a great point. I know that the other video that you'd sent me, collectivism, that's right, Matt Cheatwood. Collectivism is the word I was trying to find. So it's always oscillating between individualism and collectivism. But the video that I did a little, very small partial review of the other day about how we might end up in a civil war, he was saying that when, I want to say it was 80% of the population is now below the poverty line. And I'm not saying that it is now, but when a society finds itself with 80% or more of its population under the poverty line, it's almost inevitable that some kind of social upheaval, whether it's a revolution, a civil war, a massive degradation of the society, is almost certain to happen. And I think this is one of the things that Weinstein is trying to point out to us. We're getting to that point. Yes, there are multiple Parkers for civil unrest, Matt Cheatwood. That is correct, true. But I believe that is one of them, as certainly is one of them, is when you have a massive amount of people who are below the poverty line. Markers. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I should, yeah, correct. There are multiple markers for civil unrest. Thank you very much. I think Weinstein here is talking about that we have a lot of social upheaval. We have a lot of distrust in the things and the institutions that before we had trusted to guide us and lead us, and now we feel, and often actually we know, that there are institutions that are lying to us, who are not saying the truth. Let's see. Oh, hey, Lady V, it's good to see you. And Matt Cheatwood says poverty and average age of marriage. Oh, yes, poverty and average age of marriage. I know the average age of marriage is profoundly high right now. Nobody seems to want to marry anymore, which, I mean, society's kind of brutal to you anymore. There used to be there were perks to marriage, and now it seems like many of those things have been taken away, whether just through evolution or through design. Lady V, hey Curtis, yes, hey back. It is good to see you. And she says, yes. Stacy S. Jones says, currently, who can afford to marry and have kids? Well, that top 20 or 10%, they're the ones who can afford to marry and have kids. The studies I've seen have shown that the top percenters are actually still quite willing to marry. They're still quite willing to have kids. And, their divorce rate is probably still pretty high, but there it is. Matt Cheatwood says average age of marriage over 28 is virtually a guarantee of unrest. And while I don't know the figures, that sounds, I mean, I would not be surprised at all if that's the truth. I mean, how can your society stay stable when it takes you till you're at least age 28 to even contemplate it? I know I was 29 before I married, and we won't really discuss too much about that. Lady V Elements, I want to marry and have more babies. Not sure what's wrong with the men out there. Well, that is a discussion for possibly another post, but it does dovetail into this. There are things going on with men, and we have to be able to talk about that, and yet we're not able to talk about that for some reason. Lady V also points out very intelligently that the number one reason for divorce is, in fact, marriage. Marriage is not what brings us together today. She also says, I do believe divorce is the biggest issue. It makes marriage unsacred and pointless. And I am a divorcee, so I am not perfect. I'm not going to throw stones at anybody for it, but you're right. There seem to be a lot of frivolous divorces. There seem to be a lot of people who make the vows until it gets inconvenient for them. Matt Cheatwood says, with women and men, Mousetopia is getting closer. And amen, I think that I see it. I see it everywhere. And Lady V, let me know if I'm paying too much attention to the chat, but I want to pay attention to you guys because you're the reason I'm here. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself, and I mean that's kind of cool, yes, but it's really a lot more fun when there's some give and take here. I learn from you. Hopefully, you learn a little bit from me, or at least are entertained. Lady V says, I say take away the divorce. Spiritual laws should apply. And yeah, spirituality is a great big deal. It's I don't want to offend those that don't believe in God or anything, but there definitely does seem to be something totally missing in our society. Corporal punishment, just saying. I'm not exactly sure if you mean there needs to be more corporal punishment or that it's a bad thing. It's definitely worth a discussion. And Matt Cheatwood says, I'm not sure what that acronym means, but women do in fact initiate. I believe you're right. It is close to, if not over, 80% of divorces. And there's a lot to be said there, both pro and con. You know, why in the world is it? Why are women so unhappy with marriage? But that also dovetails with why are men so unhappy with it? We're scared of it because, well, if 80%, I mean, last I checked, 50% of marriages end in divorce. So 80% of divorces initiated from women means that 40% of all marriages are ended by a divorce initiated by a woman. That's the math. I may have, Matt, with respect, we may have that statistic wrong, but that's the math if it is correct. And I think it is. Lady V says, with the option to divorce, family splitting, and of course, cost of living, it's not the best investment. And that is also a good point. It used to be a very difficult thing. Possibly it was too difficult. I kind of tend to believe that, especially in Victorian times, it was too hard to get a divorce. But then again, should we really just be able to completely upend a family just because, oh, I just don't like this, or the neighbor makes more money, or okay. And she also says, you're right, Matt. Women get unhappy, weak, uncompromising based on this feminist movement. And again, not to beat up on women too much. I want to be a little bit careful of that. But yes, there's a strong, angry, I hate men thing that goes on. There's definitely a difference between the positive feminism of Susan B. Anthony and the negative feminism of today that seems to just have an angry, hateful thing. Matt Chewood says, I think most wives would reconsider if they had no safety net after divorce. And I don't know if I go quite that far, but it is true. If there's no safety net, yeah, you're not going to divorce for trivial reasons anyway. That guy, and if he's beating you, 100%, get out of there. If he's running around on you, well, yeah, you should probably get out of there. But otherwise, if there isn't a safety net, you better think twice before just running away from the guy. Lady V says that people should definitely know what they're marrying to. And that is so true. That is so true. Like a 2-year investigation and courtship prior to marriage. And I'm not meaning to laugh, but I just had images of like hiring Inspector Gadget or some, Agent Smart to investigate this woman. Wedding private investigators should be a thing. And, reference back, the rich, they have a better thing with marriage. Is it possible that it's because they can afford a freaking PI to go and investigate this person? And therefore they have a better idea. I mean, I'm just talking out loud now. I'm actually getting a little bit away from the topic. I'm going to try a couple more comments, and then I'm going to dive back into the video. S. Jones, quality family relationships counseling. Oh, this is gold, S. Jones. This is gold. It needs to be more readily available. It's like we've lost, and this is actually, without even realizing it, maybe you did, but S. Jones has come to the core of what I'm trying to say through this review of this video. We've lost the ability to honestly communicate with each other. And I think it is my humble opinion that Weinstein, in some cases, nails on the head how we've lost that ability. There is a lot more that needs to be said. Lady V, if they cheat, physical punishment and shame. Ho, ho, ho. It would make cheating a lot less popular. I'm not very likely to run around on my woman if I know that something's going to happen to me. Matt Chewood, he says losing an ovary would be equivalent of losing a testicle. Lady V, tubal surgery. Let me actually show them in the chat here. Tubal surgeries, I like it. There's no outward appearance change to signify the shame. I do think loss of societal pressure of shame is one of the largest drivers of the increase in divorces. That's almost certainly true. And yes, Lady V, at the risk of being totally inappropriate, that is safe. Yes, that is totally safe. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. I hope I get more smooth with this stuff as time goes by.
Blood is thicker than water, and that's the rule that governs the day. the way to avoid that fate is to A, recognize that it predicts a great deal about the noises people will make as it's happening. So I'm watching the shocking rise in anti-Semitism, and I'm thinking it's right on time.
Why?
Because when I did my work back in college about Hitler as a rational monster, I understood that the targeting of Jews was a predictable phenomenon. That Jews, because they live as a diaspora, and because they succeed as a diaspora, are an obvious target when the music stops. You can transfer.
Get very concrete about that. Why does being in diaspora, which for people that aren't familiar with that, you're an outside group living in another country. So people often refer to the Chinese as being part of a diaspora because they have a strong sense of the homeland, but yet they may live somewhere else.
Yep. So let's say you've got a population and it's industrious and capable for whatever reason. I would argue that those reasons are largely cultural, maybe entirely so. But it accumulates some wealth, it achieves some position in society, and then the racist impulses return. And one way that you can generate growth for a population is to come up with an excuse to transfer the wealth of another population.
Okay. Now, I believe that was when I really started to listen. And I promise I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I want to go as in depth into it as I reasonably can. I know I'm going to cut this off at midnight and possibly earlier if interest flags or if my fatigue falls in. But S. Jones and I were talking on the phone earlier today about growth. I'm largely a capitalist, but one of the assumptions that our modern style of capitalism makes or seems to make is that growth is an eternal thing. You're always going to have growth. Well, the trouble is you don't. That assumption is actually, I hate to use the term, but it's unsustainable. There will be times of economic decline. It's pretty much inevitable, at least as far as I know. If anyone knows anything about a way to run an economy without them, I am all ears. Evidently, I don't know that our government is, but I'm all ears about it. So I thought that was interesting, S. Jones, because Weinstein here brings up an incredible point. You see the racism. I mean, it's always there, but you see that massive spike in it when, for whatever reason, the growth has stopped. And rather than doing the work that needs to be done to get growth going, you know what? Those just fill in the blanks. That group of people over there has a bunch of money and we don't like them. Let's go take it from them. And I mean, obviously, both sides of the socialist capitalist debate can make hay with that, but it is a truism. And Matt Cheatwood here, I like free market capitalism, as do I. And you are right on this. We have crony capitalism. It's a style of oligarchy. If you have read, and now I'm going to open the can of worms. If you have read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, yes, sir, S. Jones, it's always easier to steal than to grow. 100%. In Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, there's a lot of flaws in that book, but there's also some really powerful stuff. basically the economic system of the world just collapses more or less. And the decision of who the winners and losers becomes no longer the market, but the government. And that's where we're at now. Now, I'm a little bit oversimplifying, and I'm sure that there's another side to that debate too, but there's a lot of decisions being made in Washington and not in our local markets. Matt Cheatwood, the 1% rage that was growing a few years ago seems to have faded away shockingly fast. Well, I mean, yeah, if you're talking about the Tea Party movement or the 1%, the 99%, yeah, where did that go? What happened to that? Matt Cheatwood abhors collectivism, and yes, pretty much so do I. But I want to be a little bit careful because I know that some people have a different view on that. But yeah, I'm not fond of government-imposed collectivism. Now, if it's, and I think you may agree with this, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but families working together, businesses working together, those are all wonderful and beautiful things. And I think those movements often do get things done. But when it's a government imposed top down thing, it often ends up being a terrible thing. Lady V, rage doesn't go away that easy. The media got better at ignoring it. Out of sight, out of mind. And that is also, in my humble opinion, true. I don't think we have, and please forgive me, I know there may be one or two people in, if not the chat, at least in my group of friends who probably profoundly disagree with me, but I don't believe that we've had real, true journalism in nearly a decade. I don't know that I want to get into it now, but the smallest minority possible is the individual. Minorities should have their rights protected 100%. And hello, Connie. Well, heck, I'm not fast enough. Hello, Connie Cleary. I welcome Netter's Raid, and I know that many of you will come and probably have to go because of other streams, but I appreciate you being here. Please feel free to like, if you haven't already, subscribe, and feel free to comment and try to make my weird scatterbrain thoughts more consistent. Yeah, you're probably not wrong, Matt Cheatwood. I'm just trying to be generous here, but I would say bare minimum 10 years and possibly as long as, oh gosh, possibly as long as I'm willing to listen to the viewpoint that we haven't had good journalism for all of my life. Now, I'm not sure that I would agree with that, but I'm 100% willing to listen to that because it seems like somewhere around the time we were born, Matt, this decline began. And it's become very precipitous in the last decade or two. Okay, so everybody said hi, and I guess I've made the point, but I think it does bear repeating. You have a time, as Germany had at the end of World War I, when partly for natural reasons, but mostly for socially imposed reasons. This is not to defend the Germans or the Zanies because we're censored and I can't say the actual word because I could get this taken off, and that's horse hockey. Dad man walking. Howdy, sir. I am doing well. There's been some tornadoes in my state, but I guess they're all afraid of me, so they've stayed away from me. Thank you very much for subbing, Connie Cleary. You are the best. So some of you don't know her, but she is like her and Lady V and Lady Mist. Hello to you as well. They are pillars of basically a set of YouTubers that I've tried to worm my way into because they're spiffy, they're cool, they're intelligent, they're sweet, good people. And Dad Man Walking, he has also put out some wonderful posts. Check him out. I don't know if I'm as good as some of the others because I don't know if I'm quick enough to get all of your links in there. I've made Lady V. I thought maybe I hadn't. Yes, Lady V is a wrench, and anyone else that wants to be, just let me know. But if someone can put some links in the chat so that most of us are subscribed to each other. And Lester, San Jose, the Skeptic Tank, how are you? I am so glad you got out of the hospital. My thoughts and my very unsaintly prayers are going out for you. And I hope that your recovery continues. Lester, San Jose, what I've watched on his channel, what I've discussed in some of the panels, with the one panel that we've been in, he is like my old crew of friends from college. He's a man who's interested in philosophy and spirituality, but he's also very interested in the martial arts and in many things geekdom. So absolutely check out his channel. It is worth, in my humble opinion, it is worth your time. Oh man, I've never had this many people. This is crazy. Putin's cat. Yes, I have a stream. At the risk of overdoing it, I'm not as good as Troy or Netter or Deleted Scenes, or frankly, probably half the people that are now in my chat. But I'm very gratified. The subject today is I'm doing a very madcap review of a Weinstein interview that I think reveals a lot of the issues of the day. And that video is supplied to me by Matt Cheatwood, who is also in the chat today. Deleted Scenes, I salute you. You are a solid human being, and I love the movies that you present. And I'm sorry I couldn't go to many of the movies today. I had a date, but that's not the topic. So I won't say, I don't date and tell much. So the tablet is my waterproof account. I'm not sure I'm intelligent enough to know what that means, but thank you. Bouncing in and out, busy tonight. Yes, I know, Dad Man Walking. You are a busy. And Deleted Scenes, man, how do you even get any sleep? You're always streaming, which I'm not saying that as criticism. It's awesome. He's always no, Putin's cat, not Weinstein the perv. Weinstein, I thought he was a physicist when I first listened to him, but it turns out he's actually some kind of a biologist, and maybe we'll get into that, and maybe we won't. Thank you very much, Netters Network. I am one of the reasons I'm doing live streams is to get some practice so that hopefully when we talk, it's actually worth your time. Please, God. Is that a toilet joke? I have no idea. Okay. Okay, so everyone's saying hi to each other. Einstein, well, not Einstein, but the guy is very bright. And in fact, he discussed things on a level that made me think he was a doctor in physics, but that's not what his doctorate's in. Let me get back to that, and maybe this will answer some of the questions, but I will probably fall behind in the chat. So bear with me a bit, please. And thank you.
So the obvious thing to do is to say, well, geez, the reason that Germany lost World War I was a Jewish fifth column, and the sorry state of Germany today is the result of being stabbed in the back by these people. I mean, maybe they shouldn't even be called people. Maybe they're vermin, they're diseased, they're disgusting, right? You start making those noises and you justify a significant transfer of wealth from one population to another. And this goes back to the question about the founding fathers. Obviously, the time period is different. But if you imagine that Germany, prior to the Holocaust, was a place that involved a few lineages, and then one lineage starts playing against the others, right? Well, you create growth for the one lineage without having to invent a new technology or discover some more efficient way of accomplishing something. It's phony growth. What is it made of? It's made of the stuff that the people you're killing are leaving behind. It's made of their homes, right? You're creating something that feels like growth for one population by targeting another population. And when that happens inside of a landmass, we call it genocide. And when it happens across a border, we call it war. But they're the same process, right? You come up with an excuse to attack some population that can't defend itself, and you create the appearance of growth through theft, right? I mean, if you had a company and it could steal from some other company, it would feel like, oh, well, the value of this company just rose. And the point is, yes, you took stuff from somebody else. So I knew that at the point that the growth ran out, you were going to get rabid anti-Semitism. And frankly, it precedes other forms of virulent racism, but you're going to see those too. And I know where this heads. You're going to come up with excuses for doing away with people who aren't entitled to what they have, and that does end in genocide. So,
Okay, so, oh yes, and hello, Troy. Thank you very much for being on my channel. Hopefully this doesn't scare you away. I tend to be a little bit of an egghead, if you haven't already been able to tell. And also, hello to, I am too slow, to Geek Flag with Nate Knows. Howdy, thank you very much. Putin's cat says Germany supported Austria in its war. That is true. S. Jones, is he saying that fascism was just inward-facing imperialist ambitions? Well, it's not a bad way of looking at it, S. Jones, but I think he's trying to make the analogy to today. We've hit this point, I would argue around 2001, but pick a date and it may be just as right as mine. But it's been a long time. We've done a lot of mental gymnastics to say that there's been growth, but I don't know about the rest of the people in chat. And I'm going to be a little less factual here than I ought to be, but I really feel like America freaking stopped in 2001. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. And it's one of the reasons why I'm playing Weinstein, is because he's actually much more positive and hopeful in his presentation than I think I am. But to me, I've always kind of felt like the terrorists won that one. They took down the towers. We gave up our freedoms. We gave up who we are. We gave up our soul. And I haven't felt like I've lived in America for 23 years. And I hope that even if you disagree, I hope that you understand why a man would feel that way. Matt Cheatwood, I think he is saying there's no real difference between the Holocaust and the genocide that is part of warfare. And yeah, that makes sense. Putin's cat says, my bad, perhaps, Putin's cat. I have no idea what he is saying. Jews were pushed out of many places, which is true, including Russia. Germany lost World War I, but was not defeated. But the country is bankrupted. And I may understand what you mean. I'm only asking to be sure that I understand. What you mean was they weren't defeated in spirit. They still felt a strong cohesion of we are a good people. we are worthwhile and intelligent people, they weren't really truly crushed in their spirit. But feel free to elucidate if you mean something different. At Putin's cat, the unemployed in Germany looked for a scapegoat. This was the Jews, 100%. 100%. And perhaps I'm misinterpreting Weinstein, and maybe I'm misinterpreting the whole friggin' thing, but, 9/11 happened, and we went to these horrible, crummy wars, and that accomplished, as far as we can tell, and with all respect to the troops, because I've known so many people who served, and I do respect them. I don't want anything I say to sound like disrespect to them, but it feels like we really didn't accomplish anything. And then there's the 2008 housing thing, and then you have all these weird, crazy elections that we're not supposed to talk about, whichever side of it we're on. Lady V Element, she says it's all the same in my opinion. They just get the media to cover something more to create a sympathy pool. And I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of tactical misdirection that the media is maybe not deliberately doing, but I think they're being used to do it. We're going to come out with a story to distract. I love the X-Files, where the lone gunmen were being confronted by this agent, this FBI, whatever he was, CIA person that worked at Area 51, and he was laughing at the stuff that they wrote. And he was talking about, Saddam Hussein's not even real. He's someone we made up to just bring him out whenever we want to distract the people. Thank you very much. Yes, Troy, please. Even though I know I need growth, I also appreciate any subscription. I think this is a wonderful community, and I'm glad that I'm getting a mix of people here. It's very gratifying. Putin's cat, their military was not defeated. I haven't studied my history well enough, but I believe you are right. Okay, if I end up censored, I'm censored. I think Hitler, please don't get me wrong. Please, like Weinstein, I'm not saying any of this in praise of him or to say that, oh yeah, that's what we need. But he had a brilliance in that he knew how to read that, and he knew how to basically lead it into a very sinister direction. Go back, see why nobody liked the Jews at the time. While that's controversial, it's actually not a bad point. And I know I talked with Moira Kitty here the other day about those very points. And there's a lot of things that I didn't agree with that she said, and I'm sure that there's people in my chat that didn't or wouldn't. But she did bring up a lot of points that need to be thought about. Israel sank one of our ships. And I mean, they're not perfectly innocent. Having said that, does that mean they deserve genocide? No, 100%. Does that mean that they deserve the things that are going on? Well, no. But I am just saying that, yeah, we have to be careful of painting them as perfectly innocent lambs. But at the same time, see, these are things, this is what Weinstein's trying to say. These are things we have to be able to discuss. We should be able to talk about these things without fear that we're going to be deplatformed because they think that we're supporting the zanies, who I can't talk about. Enjoying the show, yes, please, and thank you. Okay, I'll try it later. Putin's cat, the small thing you played, he is loose with facts. Now, you're not wrong there. Perhaps I need to get a little further in. And I hope I said hi, but if I didn't, hello at Geek Flag with Nate Knows. Thank you for being on my stream. Hopefully I don't scare you away. And Matt Cheatwood says we made exactly the opposite choices after that day. And I think you mean World War I, but possibly you mean 9/11. And either way, you're probably right. We've made a lot of bad choices in the last 120 years. Lady V, your typos are just because you're thinking about deleted scenes. Don't try to fool me. Putin's cat says, can you state a sentence or two of the subject here? Well, okay, that's fair. The subject here is that there are topics that are being censored that shouldn't be being censored. And whichever side of those topics you're on, that's not, I'm not here to try to tell you to think one way or the other, but we should be able to have the discussion without fear of being deplatformed or canceled or whatever. That's the topic. And I'm using the Weinstein interview because I think he makes some salient points. I'm doing a terrible job of showing them, but I'm erring on the side of trying to interact with you folks. Who I'm supporting. That's one of my plot flaws. That's one of my character flaws. Because I have friends that have R's and D's, I often do try to kind of split the fence. So I guess the best way to put it is I'm supporting people who are for intellectual honesty. I'm supporting people who believe that we've turned down a really dark path that leads nowhere. I'm not here to tell you to vote for or against Biden or Trump or anybody. I just believe that we need to start having some of the difficult talks. I'm going to throw out an example that will probably get me taken down, but January 6th, we need to have some really difficult discussions about that. But we can't anymore because either we're scared of being deplatformed or we're scared of offending our friend or we don't have the facts, which you're pointing out, and that's a fair point, Putin's cat. That's a fair point. Matthew Cheatwood respectfully disagrees with him. What facts was he loose with? And you probably answered. Putin's cat, you can't commit genocide to prevent genocide. And hey, fair point. What it does sound, at least to certain people that I had friends with, that's what's going on in the Middle East right now. Dad Man Walking is back to a debate that I will probably not moderate very well. We stopped, yes, Geek Flag with Nate. We stopped in innovation and in our core ideals. And that I would 100% agree with. I still remember when the growth in technology was exponential, and there may be growth in AI technology, there may be growth in weapons technology, but our cars have more bells and whistles and are harder to work on and more expensive to replace. But we seem to have stopped. Matt Cheatwood, World War I and Jewish terrorists in Germany. Now try to be respectful to each other. I know that these are hard issues, but that is kind of my point, is that these are emotional issues, and we've got to be able to talk about them, but we also have got to be able to talk about them rationally, with respect to you, Putin's cat, because I know these are tough topics, and I'm probably being an idiot for even bringing them up, but that's what I do. Hello, human Thade, honored brother of cephalopod kind. I'm very honored. Thank you very much. Deleted scrambling Lady V's brain. Putin's cat, sometimes you have to commit genocide to prevent being. Ooh, that's a tough one. And again, with respect to you, Matt Cheatwood, that's That's a tough one, but we have to be able to have that discussion. Am I wrong? You know, I may not necessarily agree with that statement, but you have to be able to say it, Matt. That's my opinion anyway, because I think I know what you mean. If it looks like we're about to be genocided, then we need to do something about it. And it's a tough and painful topic. Typos. Okay, and Matt says, I don't have an R or a D, and Cthulhu bless you for that, because I do have an R as far as that's my party, or was my party at one time, and I haven't removed it. But I've always felt, and this is another reason why it's hard to figure out who the hell I'm supporting. I've always felt like we were being played by both sides. So, new comments. Let's see if there's anything. Okay, let's go to Putin's cat here. World War I, World War II, current Jewish issues are three separate issues. I would start at World War I, cause the fall of the. Okay, and that's actually smart. They are separate issues. Lady V, she says, I'm a firm believer there will always be war, and I'm afraid you're right. Because of contradiction and opposition won't matter, and sometimes it doesn't. It sometimes doesn't matter whose side is better morally if they've got bigger guns. Geek Flag, Curtis LB Media. Hasn't? I'm not sure what you mean there, but something hasn't been interested in the truth since cable. Oh, yeah, you're right. Since cable news was created, it's all about propaganda on both sides. I don't totally agree with that one. Man, I don't know if I'm getting the point across, but I'm getting some good discussion here. When people are involved, there will always be war. Lady V says that same fact led to the Dem rep voting system, the alleged two-party that is actually a uniparty. It doesn't work when they're run by the same companies. Don't know enough to intelligently respond to this, but I'm going to share. Matt Chewood says Brandon Herrera for Congress, and if he supports that person, that at least means that I probably ought to look them up. Good on you, deleted scenes. I know you're doing all kinds of things. I'm just glad that you're here. I'm honored that everybody is here. Putin's cat says, I support stability. Amen to that. And borders, 100%. The stock market, understandable. Whomever can provide stability is the better choice. That's an interesting point. Again, things that need to be discussed. Chaos only helps people that have no money, banks, nor mortgages. Now, I would suggest that chaos is serving somebody's benefit. I'm not sure I'm smart enough to know who, but there is someone who is at least attempting to use all of this chaos to their own benefit. Geek flag, in other words, I'm just supporting the truth wherever that leads. I've found the truth often leads me to very embarrassing places. Putin's cat, some degree of stability is desirable. Yes, that's 100% true. And my friend Fade, who understands perfectly my deep love and respect for Cthulhu, all politicians, and only Cthulhu could put it this succinctly. All politicians are only in it for themselves. They are no longer here. Preach it, brother. They are no longer here for the people, just to line their pockets and keep themselves in power. That is both sides. The two-party system no longer works. I think he put it better than I do. Lady V. Lady V, and I'm not laughing at you, Lady V. Matt Chewood just made a very funny comment. I'll get to it in just a second. Economically, yes, that would be best. But when economy is at its peak, That may require a different candidate. I'm not 100% sure I understand that one, but it sounds interesting and provocative, Matt. No lives matter. Amen and hallelujah. Okay, S. Jones, chaos serves those ready to swoop in and take advantage of desperation. Thank you, S. Jones. Look at the hedge funds snatching up land after natural catastrophes. Great and perfect. That's exactly right. Putin's cat, chaos won't help the markets, which is true. This can be people getting on TV and saying stupid things, or Ukraine or Israel or another, the disease that cannot be named or I will be deplatformed. They reference back to we need to be able to have these discussions. I'm not getting on to you, Putin. I'm just rancid about the media. Anything that randomly disrupts the markets. Okay. The chat's doing better than I am. Man, I should just turn it over to you guys. So let me get back. Wait, what did I do? I did not do what I wanted to do. Okay, share screen. I'm going to probably let him say a few more things.
I think the bad news is this is where we are in history. The good news is we actually have much better tools than we did when this happened previously to understand what's taking place and to change course. But the way you would have to do that is you would have to create a mechanism whereby the population was immunized from the immediate sense of peril that comes when you run out of new ways to generate well-being, right? When growth is not a sustainable process, and the fact that our institutions pretend like all you've got to do, is keep the thing pointed in the right direction and there will always be plenty of growth. That's not true. Growth comes from somewhere, and it does not come from that somewhere regularly. You cannot just create a system that hums along and is always making new stuff. There's boom and there's bust, and you can't afford to have the bust triggering these genocidal impulses, which is what they will do if you don't figure out how to address the question.
Okay, so right now we have two wars going on, one in Ukraine and Russia, one in Israel, Gaza. Are they both a genocidal impulse?
This is tricky. I will say something is going on in Ukraine, and if there's one thing I know, it's that I don't know enough to understand it. Okay? There's the obvious part of it, right? There's Russia having attacked a sovereign nation, and now a generation of young men have been sacrificed to this battle.
YouTube shenanigans. He doesn't personally mind it. Yeah, YouTube. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm so glad they give us a free platform. That's awesome. Good on them. But yeah, the whole. I've thought about doing that talk. I did a little bit of that talk about a week or so ago. But Putin's cat. Let's see what he's saying here. The disease that shall not be named, an acute disease in humans caused by, again, a virus that shall not be named. Yeah. But we should be able to have that. I should be able to say that. I'm totally okay with you saying, even at the risk of the thing being deplatformed, I'm okay with you saying it because I believe in free speech. Let's see, and you're not wrong, and it's okay if you're criticizing me instead of the platform, but either way, it's a good point. Might as well say I can't say physics. 100%. Geek flag with what purple kids are red, Democrats are blue, and neither one gives a crap about you. Just out of respect to my sister, if she ever comes on here. We are not just growing, Matt Cheatwood says. Most of us are actively losing quality of life right now. And I think it's demonstrable. even people who will try to talk to me about the economy isn't as bad as they say, and I get what they're trying to say. I'm not trying to be argumentative or hateful toward them, but those very people, their lives are falling apart. And, you know, I mean, yeah, we all have a little bit of blame in some of that, but there's also a lot of external forces that these people cannot help. And they're doing their best, and they're doing all the things that we were told to do, you know, work hard, take care of your family. And that no longer seems to be working anymore. YouTube shenanigans, yes, you are 100% correct. Putin's cat, Russian men or Ukrainians. Hopefully I'm not being completely ignorant, but I'm not sure what the question means there, respectfully. JPRPH, hello, thank you and welcome to my random madcap channel where I'm trying to talk about deep and profound things and probably just irritating the crap out of a wonderful group of chatters. Okay, Matt Cheatwood, he is saying something. What was he going to say? I can't get it to open. Yes, I think both countries have lost a terrible number of young men. That is true. I mean, that's just true. Whatever side you're on any of those debates, that is a fact. Both countries have lost a terrible number of young men. That's just true. Putin's cat, it's a scientific term and a definition of a word, like it or not. Yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm not trying to be equivocal as in, you know, I don't think you guys should be saying the word that shall not be said. So I hope you understand that. But we are, you know, we can be deplatformed for saying it. That's stupid. That's ludicrous. Again, not getting onto you, Putin's cat. Your point is valid. The world is messed up. S. Jones, at Matt Cheatwood, I think our growth is partly coming from transferring wealth from one part of the people to another. And yes, that's true on all kinds of levels. I don't have the figures in front of me, so I don't blame you if you're like, that's not a fact. But I have seen charts where the Fortune 500 companies gained the same amount of money that was lost by all of us during the disease that shall not be named. It's true. And I think Weinstein is trying to say that that's the scary thing. We've stopped actual growth. Part of that may be natural, but I think part of that is due to some very unfortunate dynamics. Putin's cat, one statement about Ukraine, there is no reason to invade them. That's a fair point. If you let Putin do this, he might just want to attack another country. That is also a fair point. And if you don't care about Europe, fine. Well, a little bit of a provocative statement there, because I think that someone that has a different perspective on the Ukrainian war, it's a little bit ad hominem to say that they don't care about Europe. Having said that, though, I get the feeling. It can get really exasperating hearing people say, well, you know, Ukraine doesn't need funding. And you're like, well, but they're dying. What are we just supposed to let them die? And I'm not saying I'm smart enough to have the answer. Let's see. Look at my above comment, says Thade. Let me get back up there. Right or wrong? Okay. Yes, 100%. Nyarla Hotep for president 2024. You heard it here first. A cephalopod in the White House. I do think of the possibilities, and I'll bet the World Economic Forum does too. All right, so completely. I'm going to skip down a little bit, not because I'm trying to ignore people, but I'm trying to get back to either the video or some good commentary on it, although this is all good stuff. Okay, Lady V Elements. There's a little debate going on here. I don't want to get too deeply into it, but I want to highlight a comment of Lady V Elements. Mexico is already working with U.S. in trade, which is true. They bend to everything because they're so close and can't afford a war trust. They want freedom from the U.S. too. I may not understand your point, but I think that that's part of what's going on with the whole border crisis. And maybe I ought to keep my mouth shut when I don't have a lot of facts to back this up. But I think a part of what's going on is these these illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, whatever the term should be. I'm too tired to think of it right now. They're facilitating them coming across because, not because they necessarily, I mean, and they may, but not necessarily because they have a nefarious agenda, but because it's a strain on them to have them there. So let's get them the heck on out and get them into the United States. Mexico's looking out for their own best interests, as we all do. I'm going to skip those two, not because they're not good comments, but because I just don't want to get distracted by it too much. Lady Velements, Mexico wants the wall more than Trump did. U.S. ran. Oh, sad but true. U.S. is run by pedophiles and power-hungry, entitled wanks. And again, whichever side, whether you're R or D, there's some of that going on in both parties, and I think we all know it. I don't want to name names because I don't want to, only because I don't want to alienate anyone in here, and also because I feel like there was, when The Sound of Freedom came out, which I recommend the movie. Whether you're on a different side of the debate or not, I recommend you watch it. But having said that, I think there were too many people who used that film to say, well, this celebrity did X, Y, and Z, but then they never, as Putin's cat very saliently pointed out, they didn't present any facts. They just threw ad hominem attacks at this celebrity and said, well, they're pedophiles. Well, I don't know if they are or not. Give me some evidence, and then I'll have a better idea. But no, you're right. Mexico, whatever we may think of them, they're humans too. They don't want their kids getting snatched. I'm going to skip that one. Let's see what Geek says. Growth comes from imagination and hope. I almost did a post about that, but I didn't have enough imagination to make it come about. S. Jones knows what I'm talking about. When the people lack hope, they also lack the need to grow and to better themselves. Yeah, you get, and I've been there. I hope I'm not too, I don't want to be disingenuous and pretend I've never been there. I know what despair is. And I know what it's like to just be in this place where you feel like nothing that you do matters, nothing that you do will improve anything. And the thing is, I think censorship is a force of that dynamic. If we aren't allowed to talk, then, we're not allowed. Basically, if you can't talk, you also can't do. You can't do anything to make it better. We can't. I'll just say it. If I get deplatformed, I get deplatformed. If we can't talk about COVID, if we can't talk about the efficacy or non-efficacy, again, I'm not meaning to take a side on that, not in this discussion anyway, and not with this audience. But we have to be able to talk about how effective were the COVID vaccines. Were there any side effects? Did we know about them before? Maybe we didn't, but we have to be able to talk about that. Down. Oh, Lord. Is this Hillary's Pizza thing again? Respectfully, I'll just let you guys talk about that one. I'm not even going to go into that discussion. Not because it doesn't worth. I don't mean to be contradictory of my previous thing, but I know too many people in this chat on both sides of that, and I don't want to. I don't want to get into it without more facts to be able to back up what I'm saying. He also says the biggest problem with most people is vice. Many cannot control their vices and grow for the good of everyone, and that is a truth. I will agree with that 100%. Lady V Elements, as long as Americans pay for weird shit coming out of Central and South America and other continents, other leaders will be intimidated and allow the worst to take place in order to save self. I don't even think I'm going to comment on that, but there's a 90s song in my mind now. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's get back to Weinstein and see what other spiffy things he has to say. I've got to stop hitting the wrong buttons. Hey, Darth Plato. Oh, wait. Let me get back over here. Yes, just meant to point out this major income for creepos, and you are not wrong, Lady V Elements. It's, I want to say, if memory serves, it's quickly overtaking drugs as the fastest growing component of criminal activity. Darth Plato. Hey, how are you doing? Welcome to my very kind of random chat. Actually, what I'm trying to do here, Darth Plato, is talk about a Weinstein interview and trying not to go off the rails. The United States economy cannot survive by cutting all ties with other countries and stopping trade. Well, that's true. There's never been a country that has been able to say that. Many have tried, and pretty much all have failed. My friend Thade, fellow believer in Cthulhu, when the power of love outweighs the love of power, the world will finally be at peace. And you know, coming from Cthulhu, that's deep. That's deep. Okay, Dadman Walking, have a great night. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Congratulations. This has been the biggest stream I've had, even though I've probably been the most discombobulated in it. Lady V Element says we just need a moral trade. Darth Plato says no chance of U.S. cutting trade, globalism or no globalism. I think that's true. My friend, one of my friends in the chat, I won't name him. I don't want to make him think that I'm calling him out because, as always, I'm often equivocal about the things that people say. But he says that the genie is out of the bottle when it comes to globalism, and I believe that that's true in that we have global trade. We have global interaction with the internet. That genie is out of the bottle. My question is, to what extent do we want globalism? Do we want something like the World Economic Forum telling us what to do? Or do we want a form of globalism that still allows us liberties, freedoms, the ability to say COVID online, things like that? Putin's cat second that. If you want to live in a world dominated by China and Russia, then we can continue to retreat and only take care of ourselves. That's a good point. I don't know that I 100% agree with the whole dynamic of that, but it does make a point. We could just become an internal thing and just let China and Russia run things. And I say that as in we don't want to do that. We absolutely don't. I do think sometimes that people are told that that's their thinking when it's not. But yeah, there are also some pinheads out there. Again, no names named. I'm sure that, I remember during World War II that, I don't remember World War II. I'm not that old. But I remember reading about and seeing videos about how Charles Lindbergh was very big on not necessarily isolationism, but he really did not want us to get into the war, and it practically ruined his career. And I'm only using that as an example, to point out that yes, we do have to interact with the other countries, and if we want a position of leadership, then we do have to have a certain level of outward looking. But That's the debate. I believe is, what does constitute outward and what constitutes inward. Okay, share the screen. Let's get back to Weinstein. I've killed the conversation. Who wants to start it back up?
Okay. So I have nothing but compassion for the Ukrainian people in that circumstance. But I also know that there was a question about NATO expansion, and NATO behaved in a way that did not allay Russia's fears. And more to the point, I know that my own government is in the hands of people who had their hands on stuff inside of Ukraine utterly mysteriously before this war broke out. Why is the son of the president involved as some kind of energy expert inside of Ukraine? This is a story about things I don't know, right? So I can't say how genocide maps onto the conflict in Ukraine. I can say it's a complicated puzzle. Israel and Gaza. The unspeakable truth is that you have innocent people trapped on both sides of that conflict, and you have a genocidal influence on both sides of that conflict. It's something I don't think I've said that publicly. I've implied it, and I've hoped that people would get it, and I've been told by both sides that I'm a terrible person. But what I said at the beginning of the conflict was that it was threatening to drag the entire world back into lineage against lineage violence. That if we want to save the West and save the world, we have to rescue the Middle East from this predicament, because I don't think either side is being irrational. I think they both understand that they are in a fight to the death, and in a fight to the death, the rules are quite different than you would expect. So there are clearly a majority in Israel who wish to be part of the modern world, would like to get along with their neighbors. I believe that is clear. I cannot say the same thing about the leadership. And I am particularly troubled by the fact that Netanyahu himself, who I must say engaged in absolutely alarming behavior during the pandemic, also appears to have been a facilitator of Hamas in advance of October 7th.
In what way?
What I've seen is video that appears to be Netanyahu advocating for the cynical fueling of Hamas for the purpose of dividing the Palestinians. Now, my feeling is, whatever that was, everybody who participated in any way in making October 7th occur has no business anywhere near any kind of power. This is the last person that should be in charge of a military engagement in Gaza.
Okay, so that was striking to me. I know, again, I know that there's lots of conflict on the discussion about Israel and Hamas, but I think it's possible to believe that Hamas, what happened on October 7 was a terrible thing, but yet also be very critical of Netanyahu. Not necessarily saying Israel itself, although that's okay too, but I think a lot of us would agree that Netanyahu has done some really not not very morally great things. Let's see. Putin's cat. This guy is for nobody. Well, I don't know that that's the case. I think he's trying to point out that we're being lied to on both sides. Darth Plato, Israel has been backed into a trap dating since the 80s. And Putin's cat, the U.S. is not governed by religion. I can't tell my neighbors to be moral, and that's not wrong either. I know Matt Cheatwood and I have had a lot of discussions about that. So one of the reasons why I like this video is because he does grapple, whether he does it correctly or not, he grapples with the whole issue of how are genocides happening and how is it that we're precipitating them and we're doing things that at the very, maybe they don't encourage it, but they sure don't seem to be inhibiting it at all. Geek Flag with Nate says we need globalism like the Federation in Star Trek. And this is the thing that exasperates me, actually, not with what you said, Geek Flag. I actually like what you said, but when we in this group, I think most of us, when we think about what we want for the future, I think a lot of us are thinking about something like Star Trek, where there is this unity, but it's also loose enough so that we're still free. We can still say what we want to say and do the things we want, within reason, of course. But I don't feel like the powers of whatever they may be are directing us in that particular direction. And yes, Fade, I agree. We need to have a show together. Throw me out some dates and I will check my calendar and we will figure out a time to coexist in a no lives matter way. Putin's cat. Darth Plato, Gaza has been managed by the British, the Egyptians, the Israelis, by Hamas over the past 80 years. Let them all figure this out. I don't care anymore, which I get that feeling. It's like it's totally out of our hands anyway. Why are we talking about it? I am on Twitter, yes. Let's see if I'm smart enough to get that on here. Curtis Selby. Here we go. I'm going to put that in the chat if I'm smart enough to do it. Bear with me. I'm still new to a lot of this stuff. So I am at Curtis W. Selby on Twixer on Twitter. I hope that's what you meant. Darth Plato, crap, I think I deleted your comment when I meant to click on it. No, I didn't. Okay, the trap was the two-state diplomacy with Arafat. In 2000, Arafat went to Camp David, and Arafat said no to everything. Darth Plato, to circulate the myth that Israel is an apartheid state. And, okay, Connie Cleary, bless you. Thank you very much for being a part of this. I hope it wasn't too exasperating. I'm probably opening too many wounds. Putin's cats. That being said, Israel has attacked Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and an Iranian consulate in response. This is not helpful. Now, I will say I was dating a Jordanian a few years ago. That did not end well. But the point that I'm trying to make was she was a Coptic Christian, and she had very harsh things to say to Israel and about Israel. Her father had been wounded in one of the wars, and I'm sure that colored her view. But we have to be very careful, and I'm totally okay with people being pro-Israel because, if nothing else, I'm anti-Hamas. I'll put it that way. Not anti-Palestine, but anti-Hamas. But this was not a Muslim, respectfully. The stereotype is that they all hate Israel. this was a Coptic Christian who was saying, Israel did this and attacked us, and my dad got into this war and he got wounded, and it was a big bad deal. My friend Fade, the U.S. isn't ruled by religion. Are you on the level? Politicians make policy based on religious belief every day. And yeah, that's honestly not wrong, especially in conservative states, which I am in one. Oklahoma is the reddest of the red. And if any state is run by Christianity, it's Oklahoma. And that's all I'm going to say about that, for good or ill. Good night, Connie Cleary. Please get good rest. Darth Plato, watching the U.S. and media talk about Israel is like watching Leslie Nielsen umpire a baseball game. Well, I beg to differ with you on one thing, Darth Plato. It is far less entertaining. But yes, I get your point. Darth Plato also says, what was the father doing that got him inured? That's what my question would be. I must have missed something in the chat. Not sure what that's about. So I really want to wrap this up in about 20 minutes, but I've opened a great big can of worms. So I'm going to basically open it up to the chat. What would you guys like me to talk about in my next stream? I've gotten a lot out of this Weinstein, but I honestly meant to get a lot more, but I don't want to stay up all night, and I don't want to keep you guys from other and frankly probably better streams. Would you all want me to continue on this topic, or if I open up a can of worms, it's just too much to be dealt with, and maybe I should just make peace with everyone and talk Star Trek instead? Putin's cat. Darth Plato, he was probably just sitting in a cafe. Israel kills lots of people that are hurting their country. That's how it's been for 40 years. I will say that, again, not meaning to get too anti-Israel, but I do not doubt that Mossad does a lot of shady crap. My humble opinion, and this is going to be controversial, I'm sure, but I kind of feel that Mossad is little more than an arm of the CIA. Just putting that out there. Several years ago, Israel leveled most of Lebanon. That is a truth. That is a fact. Darth Plato, not sure what people mean by religion. There's nothing wrong with having a religious point of view, and I agree with that. I do. And being informed within it. Try to talk without the logical positivism. Okay. Yes, I need to keep the focus a little tighter. I probably need to just let the chat go next time a little better. But I'm just so happy to have had all of you here that I hated to ignore it. But you're right. I probably next time, whatever I do, need to just stay more focused on what I'm talking about. Lady V Elements. I'm going to break my own thing and say, doing a little more in the chat. Anybody else has seen allegations that Israel was also tool wielded for 9/11? Honestly, I have not. But at the risk of offending people, it wouldn't surprise me. So let's see. I want to hear you talk about that one day. And when you say that one, do you mean the allegations that Israel was a tool wielded for 9/11? I'll have to do some research, but I'll be happy to do that and do a talk about that. Thank you very much, my friend, my Cthulhic cephalopodic friend. I followed you on Twitter. I want to continue this conversation on the panel with you. And I would love to do that. I don't know that I'm going to do that tonight, though, because I am frankly probably going to go to start winding down in about 20 minutes. I hate to lose the momentum, but I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and I'll in another 20 or 30 minutes, what lucidity I have now will likely be gone. And I don't want to do you guys that disservice. Darth Plato, my description of what Arafat did is correct. It's a non-tactic dating to Marx in 1833 during the Silesian Weavers Crisis. Now, that's something I don't know about. Yeah, sometimes the chat is like herding cats. Well, in my defense, I've never had a chat this animated, and I'm very gratified. The 9/11 topic. Yes, please. Yes, on another stream. Okay. Unless there's like lots of other suggestions. The sleepy. Well, I am the tired midnight blogger. What blogs at midnight? And in where I'm at, it is only 7 minutes till midnight. And oh yes, and don't forget, for those of you who are part of the Netters raid, or really any of my friends that want to go, Thade, the cephalopodic god that he is, sings karaoke with Jedi Bill. And while, let's just say that you might be able to get better singing, but you won't get many more fun times than hanging out with those guys. I've done it once and then actually heard my voice and got scared. So, Matt Cheatwood, what? Oh, Quebec. Have little patience for Hegelian dialectics and other Marxist tactics. I know that to be true. And with that, I agree. There's some parts of Marxist thought that I think need to be considered. We've discussed that before, but outside of those very specific areas, I lose patience with Marxism fast. Geek Flag, what about a topic on Area 51? I would love, although there are much better informed people, but I would love to talk about that someday too. I want to keep this going. Y'all connect person, please. Yes. Send me topics, send me research. I know from my blog that often it can get to the point where I get overwhelmed and can't do it all, but I promise that I will listen to your ideas, although maybe it doesn't always seem like that, probably. But Darth Plato, the Hegelian dialectic is fine. I've employed it myself. The Marxism we can do without. Yeah, I need to read up more on Hegel, I think, to make an actual intelligent response to that. But I do know that there is, while it's a fine line in some people's opinions, I know there is a difference between Hegelian and Marxist. I really do. Darth Plato also says had an amusing talk with someone about the Matrix movie, where I employed a Hegelian dialectic. That actually kind of sounds fascinating. See, this is where my mind goes. When the fatigue isn't like destroying me, I love to think about these kinds of things. It's one of the reasons why Matt Cheatwood is so fun to talk to. He's so intelligent about that stuff. And yes, Matt, that sounds like an amusing tale. My cephalopodic friend, I am all for discussing esoteric and odd things. I love esoteric and odd things. At the risk of losing some of my more fact-based friends, I do not mind going down some of those rabbit holes. I don't go. There's a point where I won't go too far, or for me, but I do love to talk about them. Ghosts and paranormal activity. And I love talking about that kind of stuff. I used to actually research that stuff, but I haven't in a long time. But if my life hadn't been so screwed up, I would have been Fox Mulder, I gotta tell you. And if I'd had a good head of hair. Darth Plato, the best critique I've seen on Marx is from the Polish writer whose name I guess I'll try to Lechek Kolakowski. I hope I've got that at least close. Matt Cheatwood, yes, modern day campfire tales. I have not had nearly enough of them. Geek says, shoot, I didn't realize how late it was. I have to be to work tomorrow at 8 a.m. Oh, yes. Good night to you. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you participated and enjoyed. Thank you very much. Lady V, fantastic stream tonight. Thank you very much. I too lost track of time. I meant to cover more of that video. Matt is correct. I should have been. I will try to be more focused going forward, but I just was having so much fun with you guys that I allowed myself to be seduced to the dark side of talking to the chatters. Jump over that karaoke. I'm probably not going over there just because after this I'm going to do my evening wind down and collapse. Darth Plato, I heard there were paranormal studies department at UC Davis. That was years ago. Fade for the fact base in the chat. Remember this quote: there are more things under heaven and earth than we will ever know or understand. And that is true. Sing well, lady, the elements. And she doesn't sing. She's evidently she has a very bad ear because she tells me that my voice is good. I think she needs to have her hearing checked, but I love her kindness and I love how supportive she is of so many people. It's wonderful. And Darth Plato asks if that is a fact. Okay. Well, I wish I had a cool intro or outro or whatever. With love and respect to everyone in here, and I know that sometimes we all probably got a little close to being contentious, and that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. We can be passionate about the things that we believe in. Good night to you, Matt Cheatwood. Good night to everyone. Darth Plato says Durf. I do not know what that means. But yes, good outro. I know I need to get that figured out. All right. Yes, I am going to call it a night. I hope that this was at least somewhat beneficial. I don't believe that we'll all come to consensus in one night on one stream, but maybe if we continue sharing ideas, maybe if we continue talking about ideas, but we've got to allow each other within a certain, I know there are some limits, the whole crowd of shouting fire in the crowded theater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with Matt, I agree that there needs to be as much freedom of speech and thought as is possible. He says a great point here. We don't need consensus. We need civility. And Darth Plato says, how can I disagree with Honest Abe? So I'm going to finish this with the immortal words of Honest Abe. Fourscore and 7 minutes ago, we, your forefathers, were brought forth on a most excellent adventure by Bill and Ted, conceived in a concept that was as true in this day as it was in my day. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes! Thank you very much. I'm very gratified for everyone who was here and participated, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. night, sleep, all that stuff. Good night.